Hey, what's up, everybody? Navid Moazzez here, and today I'm super excited to be joined by Todd Herman. And actually, was fortunate enough to have Todd on my podcast a while back. I believe it's like almost 18 months ago, and I was still in Sweden. I was, grinding, hustling a lot, and now when we are doing this interview, I'm in Cancun. I've obviously took my business and life to the next level, and a lot has changed for Todd as well. But just a brief intro. He's the creator of the 90-Day Year. He's a performance coach to pro and Olympic athletes, leadership advisor to entrepreneurs, and you're doing so many interesting things, Todd. So I just want to welcome you first to this interview. We're going to obviously dive quite a bit into the 90-Day Year and what the power of this has to a lot of people. So warm welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, and you actually have a podcast now. It's very exciting. I listened to quite a few of your interviews with Marie Forleo, Robert Greene. I've interviewed him before, one of my most impactful interviews I've done. So it's exciting. You're focusing a lot more on your personal brand now. You upped your game with your website, toddherman.me, and it seems like you're doing, I don't know how you find the time to do everything. You have your other businesses too. You have your personal brand. So how do you do this, Todd?
I pay other people to do it for me. That's the key. So it's one thing that I'm probably very different than many of the people that are in the maybe the online space, because when you and I talked, I actually never really had much of that personal brand equity out there, because it was never a focus of any of my companies. I've had my business now for 19 years, and I always built up actual brand names as opposed to going out and building underneath the umbrella of my own name. But over the last, I'd say 12 months, I've started to shift that just slightly. And some of that's because of my clients asking me to come out and teach a lot of my methodologies for how to actually execute and get really big wins, whether it's in business or, sport typically, because those are kind of the two big categories of people that I work with, is typically high achieving athletes or high achieving entrepreneurs type of thing. So I just follow the Navid Moazzez model of, have a nice looking website. And I don't do any of that. I paid someone else to do that. I just said, hey, this guy's a nice website. Just go copy it.
Well,
no, I didn't really do that. But
I actually appreciate that you included our interview on your website. So I highly recommend people go check out toddherman.me. You can find the other interview we did there. Also, you can find that, I believe it was navid.me/23. If you want even more, we talked a lot about your story, high performance, change your life, all this kind of stuff, the champion's mindset. But today, I just want to dive a little bit in what you're focused on today. You're doing so many things. So what's your main focus in your business and life, currently?
Yeah, I would just say that as I don't necessarily think of things as a focus on like a thing necessarily, but I'm always focused on typically more of a meta thing, like execution. That's kind of my thing, is just helping people get out of their own way so that they can execute and get the things that they really care about getting out there, if we're talking about an entrepreneur or a business owner. So I'm the same way. I need to execute, and with all the businesses that I have, make sure that in the words of Seth Godin, I'm constantly shipping. So but probably in the realm of like what actually matters to your audience, the thing that I care about right now is the podcast that I just launched recently called Grit and Hustle. Real and raw stories of how high achievers actually made it, because I think more often than not, we hear more about the glory side of things, of shining the spotlight on the finish line and, oh, you're amazing, and yet there's a process to every single person. Even you, like people in the online space love to. You're in Mexico, you get the freedom to travel, but the reality is you're also busting your butt behind this. In between those photos that go up online, there's 10 hours of hard work that's in there. It's not just you sitting around sipping margaritas all the time. And that's the stuff that I care about, because when I'm working with an athlete, helping them get to the Olympics, we're focused on the process. Just putting one foot in front of the other. What does that look like? What are the hard days? What are the big obstacles that person has had to overcome? And so I love pulling those stories out of people, whether, like you had mentioned, Marie Forleo, who's a good friend of mine, or Robert Greene, Brian Smith, who's the founder of UGG Boots. He's a great example of someone who had to overcome a ton of different adversities in order to make that brand work. So that podcast is one big area of focus in the online world. And then the program that I've got called the 90-Day Year, which is teaching essentially entrepreneurs how to actually achieve and get things completed so that we're constantly iterating on ourselves, growing rapidly, learning a lot in our business. And a lot of that comes out of I have a very systematic methodology for how you go after goals and achieve them. None of this crap that people have regurgitated over years called SMART goals, which, we can talk about that stuff later, but those are my two big areas of focus.
Yeah, definitely. And before I get into, the 90-day year here, I just wanted to ask about what's your goal with the podcast itself? What do you want to accomplish? Is that going to lead into your program, or is it just that you want to learn from all those top performers? Yeah,
no, it's not even about learning, because the reality is I'm around those people all the time and have been for, when you work with, hundreds of Olympic athletes and hundreds of pro athletes or billionaires and stuff. And this isn't about bragging. It's just like, I already kind of know what that world looks like. It's just that I think we've done a really bad job in the just in society of highlighting what it really takes. And there's been a lot of misinformation about what that looks like and what that person's life looks like and how hard it's actually been for that person from a personal standpoint, not necessarily from going after the goal. Actually, that's a lot of the easier part. But staying with it is the hard part. So my goal isn't actually, none of it leads to my programs. There's no kind of real, this dotted line leads to a program. That's not kind of why I'm doing it. I want to do it as just a message of getting out there to people of, you can do it too. But, be prepared for some tough times, and if you're doing this because you want to drive the Lamborghini, you are going to get washed out, beaten up, and run over by everyone else who's willing to do it with a Ford truck, because that's what it looks like at those levels. So it's more just to kind of sort of keep people motivated and inspired to just taking maybe a few steps. And then at the end of those few steps, maybe take a few more steps type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that it's so in depth. It's not just, it's actionable. You get to know their story, how they actually got to where they are today. And that's why I resonate with it. That's the way I like to do interviews personally, more in depth, not just, you can get a lot of value from a 10-minute, 15-minute interview, but yours are more just, you cover pretty much from the struggle of things you don't really hear a lot about. I was listening to an interview you did with Dan Martell, and he was in jail. All this was super inspiring to hear the stories. So I think that really
and that's important. Like if someone who me, I'm someone who didn't have to overcome a bunch of drug issues as a kid. I didn't come from a single parent that was growing up in the quote unquote ghetto or the wrong side of the tracks. I didn't have any of that stuff. And so trying to highlight some of those people who have lived that experience, and hey, they've done really well for themselves, but at some point in time they had to have their moment where they said, I'm not going to settle for this type of life anymore. And finding out where that came from, what caused that thought to enter your mind. Again, I love diving into the 6 inches between the ears, because that's been my world for such a long time. And I know that the conversation in our head sounds very different than the conversation we have with other people. So, it's been fun. Dan's a great example. Or even Robert Greene, who you mentioned before, someone who had toiled away in Hollywood. If anyone doesn't know Robert Greene, he wrote now 5 New York Times best-selling books. Mastery is his latest one. He's got another one coming out soon. But his first one was the 48 Laws of Power, and toiled away in Hollywood and other jobs in writing, and was 35 before he sort of got his quote unquote break. And he was exceptionally motivated to make that break happen, because in his mind, if he didn't make that happen, he felt like he was going to resign himself to a life of just quiet desperation, never ever realizing his full potential, because he never just made that thing happen of becoming a published author.
Right. And actually, when I interviewed Robert Greene, he said something to me that really resonated with me, because I thought that all the years I was in law school, I was hustling and doing
Yeah.
different things I'm not doing today. I thought all those years were wasted. But then he said, no moment is wasted if you learn the lessons contained in every experience. And
Sure.
that's so important. I mean, I know you personally, you failed at several businesses. I
Several.
failed along the way. And maybe you can even share some of this, because there was, I mean, on your about page, I read it was very spectacular. So I think that could maybe inspire some people, because now you live in New York, you have your beautiful family, all these things. You know, your life is, you know.
Oh, I've had some spectacular failures. I'll tell you two of my probably favorite ones. One isn't like from a monetary side of things, but I was speaking at this big leadership event in Las Vegas, and it was a lot of the kind of student council and student advisors from all colleges, universities, high schools. And I was on stage talking to people about the value of a first impression. And this is classic. So I'm on stage, and there's big television screens behind me. There's probably 8,000 to 10,000 people in the audience. And I'm talking about, you know, the value of a first impression. And then with about 5 minutes left in my talk, I kind of caught out of the corner of my eye a glimpse of myself, like in full-blown version on this big TV screen, and I have my fly down the entire time. Oh. The zipper on my pants was down the entire time. And so, but me, luckily, I'm good at thinking quick on my feet, and I turned and I said to the audience, now, I've been talking to you the entire time about just that value of a first impression and the value that you can give to other people in that moment. And yet many of you might have been dismissing everything that I've said throughout the course of this entire speech, but I've done it purposefully. I did it to prove the point. I've had my fly down the entire time. And how many of you have been sitting there judging me, thinking that I'm, you know, an idiot? But I wanted to show you just how valuable it is. And then I zipped up my pants, and everyone was like, they gave me like a standing ovation and all this. But it was, on the inside, I was mortified that I'd done that. And then the second thing was, which you kind of alluded to on my about page, was I had just got done building some leadership programs for some of the biggest energy companies in the world. Did it for a bunch of governments, South African government, Indonesian government, huge contract. And I was young, I was 31 or 32 when I completed that, and made a healthy amount of money, enough that I could retire, basically. And I took that money, moved out to New York City here, and bought into a company out here in New York, and was in it for about 10 months. And then just through a series of just very shady practices, my business partner ended up embezzling all the money out of the company and leaving me with not only losing all of that money, but also putting me over $1 million in debt because of that. Wow. So I spent my 20s, you're talking about hustling, I spent my 20s, hustling hard. Sometimes I had some setbacks, but hustling hard and doing well in the end, getting a good payout at the end of that, and then losing it all. So and this is only about 8 years ago. I had to start back over at scratch. I just had my 40th birthday, so I started back over at scratch, and I'm doing okay, but it definitely stung.
But how did you bounce back from something like this? This is most people wouldn't be able to just get back from something like this. This is like devastating to most people. Yeah,
it was tough, but it's funny you say that, because I'm to the listener, I'm here in New York City right now, and I'm looking out one of the windows, and there's an apartment just across the Hudson River. I'm in New York City, and she lived over in Hoboken, and we went out for coffee, and this was exactly 1 week after it happened. And she said, "Oh my God, Todd, like, if this happened to me, I would be hiding under the covers still, just crying my eyes out that this happened." And I was like, yeah, like, what are you going to do? I mean, here's the thing. I don't have a family right now because I wasn't married or anything. So that's good. I mean, if you lose something like that and you've got children to take care of, that's pretty devastating. Although I have had friends that have happened to them, and they've come out okay. But I was like, I've learned a good lesson in maybe just dotting I's and crossing T's on legal forms. Although at the end of the day, if someone is just an egomaniacal, just if they have a criminal bent in their head, they'll get you no matter what, because you and I don't think that way, and they do, and so they'll find ways to. So There's nothing you can. It's like you can put as many locks on your doors as you possibly want, but if a terrorist wants to get in, they're going to get in because they're going to do any means possible. So, but I was like, you know what? Luckily for me, I've been talking about mental toughness since I was essentially 22. Yeah. So flexing that muscle of just resiliency and just grit and perseverance, that helped out a ton. I had a really good mental perspective already that really helped me through that process. The second, and then another big thing is I had some great friends as well that, you know, were there to sort of, you know, help out just with support and things like that too. So,
right. I mean, something we have in common is that we both come from kind of an athletic background. We played a lot of sports growing up, and I think maybe something like this helped you as well because you have this kind of champions mindset. You just talk about it, but you want, I mean, if you have a setback, you want to bounce back. You want to, you know, achieve this again. You know, I mean, when people doubt you or people say, I mean, in my case, a lot of people said you will never make it as an online entrepreneur. I was like, this is for me. This really helps me.
You're not going to make it, Navid, because A, you're not from America, and apparently you have to be from America in order to make it. You don't speak, you know, you're not a fluent English speaker, and yet, I mean, you speak great English, but, you know, or whatever the other reasons are that they're trying to stack up against you, or you don't have the connections or whatever the case is. Exactly. And you know what, at the end of the day too, it's like, if I'm talking about the importance of just mental toughness and resiliency and perseverance, and yet those things really only show up when you're hit hard. And so that was kind of in my head was, you know, you've just been smacked in the face pretty hard and you got knocked down to the mat. What are you going to do? Because you're a complete fraud then to all those people you've ever helped in the past when they got hit and they're a client and you said, you know, pick yourself back up. So I just picked myself back up because that's what I coached other people to do.
Exactly. And you know, now I want to dive in more to this concept. You talk a lot about 90-day year, and tell us about what it really is. You know, what is a 90-day year and why it's so powerful. You know, I've seen you help a ton of people, and I'm excited myself to obviously go through your program and, you know, make, I mean, this year has been fantastic for me, but I want to make the 2016, at the time of this recording, it's 2015, so I want to make 2016 best year ever. So that's what I'm excited about.
Well, we'll make that happen. We'll make that happen. So I'll talk about maybe just like why it's so important. And for me, coming through and working with just high achieving individuals on the sports side of things, business side of things, there's a certain way that they're doing things that's helping them to get more success than other people. And it's not that it's easier success or anything like that. It's just that they're achieving more. And so there's a bit of a strategy and a system behind that. And so all of this work of working with people one-on-one. So again, I haven't been out there. I didn't go out and all of a sudden just say, you know what, I'm going to create a program for people. I mean, I've had this now for going on 12 years, the actual 90-day year system itself. In the beginning, it was called a 90-day sprint because I started in athletics. Sprint is something that we use in sport. And so, but then when I started doing a lot more stuff in the corporate world, you know, the common thing that everyone talks about is your calendar. So I just changed it to year because sprint is something we understand in sport. Years and calendar is something we understand in business and whatnot. So, but I just saw this better way of achievement that was happening. And we can talk about it. We can say goals, or we can talk about projects, or whatever the word is that someone wants to use, objective. But a goal is way more than just sitting down and writing a SMART goal. Like, anyone who's ever tried to achieve something knows that it's not just about sitting down and writing out a sentence that's specific and measurable and achievable and results bound and time bound. Like, or realistic and time bound. You know, there's so much more stuff that happens in the context of you achieving a goal. You know, I forget the general that said it the best, but he said, you know, a plan is great until you go out onto the battlefield, and then your plan is confronted with the realities of that battle. So we don't plan because we're going to have a perfect plan. We plan because it helps us organize our thoughts, really, more than anything else. And so the same thing happens in a goal. You can write down and have a great goal for yourself, or that objective that you want to hit, but then all of a sudden life hits you. And so, or the world hits you, or business hits you, whatever your goal is that you're trying to go after, the market itself. So we have to have a system in place in order to a better system in place in order to try and make that goal inevitable. And that's the key word that I'm always thinking about with clients is how can we make this goal inevitable? It's one of those powerful words that we could possibly use, because think about it. There's no stress around the word inevitable. And I kind of use an analogy with, my friend Jordan. When I'm hanging out with Jordan, I never worry about, oh, what am I going to say? Are we going to have a good time? It's just, for me, it's like, it's inevitable that we're going to have a good time. There's no worry that I have around that. Well, I want to get the work that I do with my clients to the exact same point. I want to make it so it's inevitable for that person. They feel it's inevitable that that goal is going to be achieved. Now they're not going after it all stressed and anxious. But because we have this inside of a great system and a great framework, a person feels so confident that when they're going after that goal, they're going to achieve it. And you and I both know that. Okay, so what was one of the goals that you wanted for 2015 in your business?
In my business, I wanted to launch Virtual Summit Mastery, and
Okay.
I didn't tell you the story. I wanted to launch it way earlier than I did, but as I started traveling, it was not as easy as I thought, and then I just launched it last month. Now, when we were recording this at the end of October, I launched it in September. It was very successful. I did over $60,000 in revenue from this launch, from a very small but very targeted list. So I was obviously very happy, but I've spent so much time. People think, as you said before, I'm in Cancun, but I also work incredibly hard when I have to do it. I could have done it before, but I now had to put in the work for this launch because it was my main focus for this year. Yeah.
Okay. So you wanted to launch your virtual business. It was called Virtual Business Summits, right?
Virtual Summit Mastery is about
Virtual Summit Mastery.
Creating, promoting, and profiting from virtual summits.
There you go. So that was your goal. Now, I bet you one of the things that you're more happy about isn't actually that you're going to be happy that you launched that program, but how many other things happened along the way of you launching that you learned about yourself, that you grew from a business perspective, that you could have never predicted would have happened to you unless you went after that goal?
A lot. I mean, crazy. It's just insane obviously now I know what I will not do for the next launch or for another program I might launch. I will never create the content at the same time I'm launching the program. That's a big mistake, but I kind of put it out last minute, but I was still organized, but I had to create content as I went along with the launch. That's not something I recommend. It's very stressful.
Yeah, it basically just meant that you're working 20-hour days then because of that, right? Yeah. But I mean, now think about just think of how much more valuable you are as a business professional, as a friend to other people who come to you for advice. And because you've gone through this experience, you're on the other side of what's called wisdom now. Wisdom, everyone talks about, hey, do you read a book a day? And you're only important if you read a book a day. And you got to read a lot of books because books are really, really important. And I'm like, no, that is such an obtuse way of looking at life, because it's not about the accumulation of information. It's about the execution.
Love that. Yeah.
It's about execution that matters, because on the other side of execution is wisdom. And wisdom is what people are paying for. So when I'm going out, we were talking earlier how I just came back from a trip down to Palm Beach, Florida, to work with basically one of the smartest marketing funnel and marketing teachers that's on the planet. And he was, a lot for that one day of consulting. I'm happy to pay it because I'm buying his years of wisdom, of him seeing how, hundreds and hundreds of very successful program launches or marketing funnels work, and then he can advise and poke holes in some of the areas that I would be weak in. Why? Because it's not my world. I don't spend all my time thinking about that. I'd much rather buy someone else's wisdom. Right. And so wisdom only happens when you work at something. I've been around a lot of people who have a lot of book knowledge, and what happens with those people who have book knowledge is they will contradict themselves one day from the next. So today, this is the most important thing, and tomorrow, this is the most important thing. Yeah. And why is that? Why are they different from day to day? It's because they just read a brand new book that says this is the most important thing on that day, and now all of a sudden they're talking about that as if they're the gospel owner of that particular thing. So I'm wary of those individuals. I have built a very thin specialization, and that is in the category of goal achievement and mental toughness, high performance. And I'm okay with that. And then that's great, because there's other people out there who are great at many other things too. So, but my point about asking those questions to you is, probably typically for most people, when you achieve a goal, you're happy with the goal that you achieved, but you're more happy about all these other things that you had no idea came out of you going after the goal.
That's true.
That's why I tell people all the time, be very careful for the goals that you choose, because the goals that you end up choosing to go after are going to really affect the quality of all of the other learnings you're going to get along the way. So, there's a quote that, if you lean your ladder against the wrong building and once you're climbing it, you realize that you're really trying to achieve the wrong thing. And yet if you would have leaned your ladder up against that one, the thing that you really wanted to do, even if you only got halfway up, you're a hell of a lot happier with the achievements that you made, because you're also around the people that you want to be around, and all that kind of good stuff that comes out of going after goals. So getting back to your question about just, the idea of 90-day year, why it's so important is I want to give people a packaged up full solution of how to achieve. Routines are important. That's embedded inside of the system for how it works. Feedback loops are important, because think about it. If you're going after a new goal and you're waiting 180 days before you're figuring out if this goal is even going to hit its target, you're waiting way too long. And that's in a niche or a market or a skill that you're trying to build that you have no experience in right now. You need to have fast feedback loops so that you're learning really quickly. Hey, is this thing hitting the mark? No, it's not. Okay, let's readjust our strategy just a little bit. Let's readjust some of the process or the tasks that I'm using in order to achieve that. That's huge for people. And then it prevents a lot of the depression that can set in for not achieving something. It's motivating you because you're seeing results happen. You're measuring performance. And then, so routines are a habit. It builds habits for people. There's reflection involved in it, because if you're not reflection, that's what that feedback loop process is like. If you're not reflecting on things, then again, you're missing out on an opportunity to possibly prevent yourself from falling down a trap that is going to cost you tons of time, money. And at the end of the day, think about business. Business moves way too fast. If you have a goal that's set beyond 90 days, I'm telling everybody right now, that is not a goal. That is a vision or a mission.
Yeah.
Technology is moving way too quickly nowadays. Entire industries can change possibly in 90 days. So keeping our focus just right on the horizon line of our life, or the horizon line of our business, which is typically 90 days out, allows you to stay really motivated towards the achievement of something. Because, hey, think about it. If today is December 1st, 2015, and that goal is going to happen on March 1st, 2016, that's only 90 days.
Yeah.
And if you achieve that thing in 90 days, and then really think about, what is that thing going to really mean for me in my business or my personal life or my family or my health? Like, wow, what are all the possibilities that could create for me if I just focus on that for the next 90 days? Yeah. That's amazing. It'll get people motivated to stay acting on it.
Definitely.
But yeah, we can dive in. I'll dive in too with people right now.
That's why people set these stupid New Year's resolutions, and that just too long. I want to lose 100, 50 pounds or whatever. They set fitness goals. I want to get faster, whatever it is. In business, I want to make 6 figures. But that's a year from now. You can rather do what you talk about, and I think we talked a little bit about that in the last interview we did too. The power of, let's say, a 12-week body transformation instead of setting this like 1-year goal of getting in shape. That's just useless. I mean, to me, that's useless because I'm not getting as motivated. And I know you talk about 3 types of goals, so maybe we can get into that and give people some examples of things they can use right now. So
if you're sitting at home and you're able to, like, if you had a pen and a piece of paper in front of you, if you drew like a mountain on your page, so just it's a triangle, but I'm going to call it a mountain. And if you think about the mountaintop is the place that, when we're out hiking, we'd love to get to the mountaintop so we can see the vista of what's all around us. And so that's what I would call our outcome. It's something that's tangible, it's physical. What it looks like. You can hold it in your hand. If Navid said to me, I want to improve my business, that's not an outcome because that doesn't tell me very much. But if he said, I want to, increase the revenue of my business by 45% by March 1st, 2016, wow, now that's something that's, pretty specific. Great. now I have the outcome. I have the summit. I have the, and that's the first category, is establishing what your outcome is. What's that objective that you're trying to hit? And then the kind of second layer of things is, your performance indicator. And then we're going to add a milestone to it. So what I mean by that is, in business, KPI or key performance indicator, something that's, a common term. In the world of sports, we call it performance. But this is where, okay, so if our outcome goal is to reach a certain level of revenue or hit a new revenue target, what are the key performance strategies? What are the strategies you're going to have to, work on that are going to make that thing happen? So it could be maybe because you're in the online space, you decide that, one of the key areas that really drives my business is, podcast listeners, just as an example. So, I would ask you, if I was your coach, I'd say, okay, well, Navid, how many podcast listeners do you have right now? And you could say, you know what, I've got 15,000 people who religiously download my podcast every single month. Great. So what would be a good milestone that we could try to hit as a new target for that group? And you could say, you know what, if we could increase that by 5% by the end of 2 weeks, great. So that's 750 people. So 15,750 people, great. That's your milestone. So that's one of their. So just keep that in mind, listener. And then I'd go to, what's another strategy that you think is going to be important? And you could say it's your email list, or it could be putting out more content that helps to continuously position you as someone who is great at leading, or great at building the awareness that virtual summits are a fantastic way to not only serve people, but also build a revenue base in your business. Great. So then what are some key content pieces that you could start to create as your performance indicator? So it could be like, by the end of 2 weeks, I'm going to increase, I'll create 2 more pieces of great content to build awareness around, this idea of virtual summits. So those are just 2 examples. Now let's go down to the third layer. That third and final layer is all about, hey, what's the process you're going to do in order to increase that, podcast listener base? And maybe it's, I'm going to start spending $20 per day in Facebook ads targeting the guest that I interview for my podcast, their people on Facebook. So if you interview me, then you would target the Todd Herman fan base or whatever because it's targeted, it's niche, they already know me. Your click-through rate's going to be super low, and so that's a process, that's a task. So anything in this layer follows basically this model of who's doing it, what are they doing it, when are they doing it, and where is it happening. Right. So, and this comes from just my athletes. If they're trying to improve, if their core strategy for an athlete is he wants to improve his free throw percentage because that's going to increase the number of points he gets per game, then I'll ask him, okay, so when are you going to be practicing that, those free throws? And it'd be like, so every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock in the morning, I'll practice, and then they'll kind of put in their routine of what they're going to practice. This is all stuff that can go inside of a calendar. It's all stuff that can go inside of a project management system. It's all stuff that can be put inside your day timer. That's what a process task looks like. And this is the area, that bottom area, is what separates really high achievers from people who just don't get the result because they focus on the process. The middle part, though, this is, I will tell you right away, the most difficult part for people. That performance area, which is all about strategic thinking, this is the part that people really, really struggle with because most people, they can actually, think about it. Even people now, when I explain what an outcome goal is, they're like, oh, I've heard about that. That's not news to me. And then I go to the second layer and they're like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Maybe some people have heard of that before. And then process and task stuff. Okay, yeah, I get that. But here's what I know. This meaty area in the middle, strategic thinking, people have a real hard time with. And so what's built into this system of the 90-day year is people start to rewire. Because at the end of the day, I'm a science-based guy. Yeah. I want to try and come up with a system and a model that just naturally rewires people's brains. And we've got people that come inside of the program. They've gone through 3 90-day cycles already. And this one lady came in and about a month ago and said, Todd, I could never get my head wrapped around strategic thinking or strategies or better strategies I could be using to build my business. And now I can't turn that off now. It's like I've now been able to pull myself up out of the weeds and be able to look from a 30,000-foot view and see where the real biggest wins are that I could start implementing right now that could really grow my business. And that's not easy to do unless you get into the world of execution. Running this stuff intellectually through your head doesn't work. You've got to apply it. Because now she's on the other side of wisdom. She is so much more valuable. And in fact, I'm reaching out to her, or I've already reached out to her about her becoming one of our kind of ambassador coaches for the program, because she's so good at going into our private communities that we have, of going in and coaching people on this stuff. And that for me, for people like you and I who are, teaching people how to do things, there's nothing better than that. Yeah. There's nothing better than seeing people get these huge insights. For sure. So people really struggle with that key performance area. And that's okay. People who've gone through this were crappy at choosing their strategy sometimes, but it wasn't until they kind of got through a couple of weeks, they're like, oh, no wonder I'm not seeing any growth. It's because I chose the wrong thing up here. Yeah. Boom. The great thing is they didn't wait months or years to figure that out, because there is, like I said before, there's feedback loops built into my system that help people get that insight much more quickly. And they're just following the right way that I have laid out for people.
Yeah, I love this. And also that you talk so much about execution. I think that's what really will help people to stay committed, because think about it, commitment is something people, they drop off, especially if it's a year, but even with 12-week, challenges, stuff like that, people, drop off. They won't finish it. But you have this proven system. It makes it so much easier for people to just follow through, because as you said, you have feedback loops. So people will say, okay, feedback here, in 2 weeks, maybe I see if my, you gave an example with podcast listener, it went up at 5%. Okay, I'm on track, I'm on track. Maybe I'm going to hit 45% growth by 90 days, whatever it is, right? And I'm seeing it's going up,
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's for someone who knows their business. Like, your business. You know that if you get more listeners in your podcast, that's probably going to, result in more people buying your programs. But if you're just starting out, there's people can have an issue with trying to choose those key strategies. And so, and we have that built into the program too, to help people kind of figure out and choose what those key things are, so they're not wasting as much time as they would have if they didn't have a good model kind of built into it.
Love that. Especially with Keith, what are you going to focus on in your business for? Let's say now I have my Virtual Summit Mastery program already created pretty much. I have students going through it. I'm getting more case studies. So what can I do to grow this? I could do webinars with other people, getting from their audience. That would be definitely a key strategy. I could use workshops for them, I even no pitch webinars just to get them onto my list, and then, build a relationship with their audience. So next time I launch, they are warm leads and they will probably purchase my program. So there's probably some ways I could just scale this massively till the next launch. I didn't do any ads or anything for the first one. So obviously Facebook ads is another key indicator. I could focus on, maybe hire this out, since I have more, some revenue now came in, so I can invest more in my business.
Yeah, exactly. And one could be an Amazon strategy where you're going after, leading authors who are out there who are already kind of thought leaders, but maybe they want to expand their thought leadership base into really owning that one word called, executive leadership. And then you're just, sort of approaching those people. And that could be your approach from a process perspective, could be through just an email introduction, could be through LinkedIn. It could be through, you going out and doing some sort of article for the National Speakers Association, because those people are all about them trading time for dollars, because they're going out and they're doing speeches. Well, if they're already good at speaking, here's just another way for you to use a different medium that you might not have thought of before. That's proven. By the way, I have a system to do all that for you. So, awesome. I'm not going to pay you for this consulting, by the way. Or I'm not going to charge you, sorry, for this consulting.
That's awesome. Anyway, I'm also seeing in your program, and I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen you talk about this quite a bit, that, you know, achieve results consistently. Let's say I do a launch, you know, and I have great results, it's going well, but how can I just know that it's going to keep going well? You know, I want to achieve better results for the next launch and next launch, and, you know, keep moving forward. So, I mean, obviously we hit setbacks, but we want to obviously set our goals higher for each time. Next launch, you know, I could set maybe a 6-figure goal for this one, but
Sure.
it's not certain I will hit it. I could also fail. You know, maybe I just hit 90,000. I won't hit it completely. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So your question is asking, like, how do we keep on stepping that up?
Yeah, the achieve results consistently and stepping this up in your business and life. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the great thing about, I mean, how many people, if they were, you know, if we were standing in front of people, I would ask people, you know, how many of you heard of the importance of creating systems, you know, in your business?
Right.
But how hard is it to create systems when you're the only person, possibly, if you're the solo entrepreneur in your business? But the beauty of this 90-day year framework is it's actually automatically creating systems for you. Because the byproduct of you flushing out this process that you've just done and the strategies that you've used to achieve an outcome creates a system. You might need to just tweak it slightly, maybe, you know, 5%, but now you've just created a model for how to achieve an outcome, which you can then pass off to whether it's your team, your assistant, whatever the case is. So with you, this is the importance of knowing the strategies. When you know what are the key things that move the needle on that outcome goal. So if you hit $60,000 with your last one, you just go back to your numbers that we've been tracking and you go, okay, well, I did that all via my own email list. And, you know, so I had 1,500 people see the page, and, you know, 1,000 people opted in. Now you know your opt-in rate from a warm list. And then from those people who went through the launch process, you know, 600 people bought, or whatever that number is, okay? Well, now you can take those numbers and present them to other people that are out there that could be possible affiliates. Right. And now I mean, the language of business is numbers. If you don't know your numbers, then it's really hard to understand what's working in our business and what's not working in our business. Yeah. And again, I mean, not to beat the dead horse, but that's what makes this whole system work, is because we have numbers in place. Me as a performance coach, I've told every single client that, listen, I'm judged against only one thing: where you are today and where you are after us working together, or us while we're working together. Are you better? Are the numbers that you are hitting, are they better than where they were before? And I want to be judged against that, because I love that. Yeah. I want to prove that this works for you, not just makes you feel better. Right. I mean, I like it when people feel better, but I also want to see the results for them. So for you, it would, I mean, getting back to your question, it's about making sure that the strategies that you're ultimately choosing to increase that number are actually going to be the things that get you to a 6-figure launch or a 7-figure launch. And typically it's just about getting more eyeballs, tightening up the messaging, you know, the marketing message that you have, or the promise type of thing. So when we're going after goals, this is where having a strategic mindset kicks in. And so for anyone out there who's really struggled with, you know, goal achievement, I'll tell you, it's probably not because you're not a hard worker. It's not because you quit on yourself and all these things. Those things might have happened to you, but the bigger issue is because you might not be great at choosing the strategy to achieve the goal the best. And my promise to people when they go through the program itself is that I will make you a strategic thinker, which is going to make you just so much more effective, not only as a human being, but just as a thinker itself as well, which makes you more valuable to everybody else around you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm so excited when you're launching this. I'm already in the membership, you know, browsing around and, you know, going through some of the lessons. It's good stuff, extremely high quality. So I highly recommend that. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes here. But first, confidence. I know this is something you talk a lot about. And, you know, specifically, I wanted to cover this when it comes to, let's say, virtual summits. You know, there's some issues there. People come to me. I'm afraid when I reach out to an influencer that they would laugh at me. They would say no because I have no network right now when I'm starting out, or when I'm gonna do the interviews. I have never done a video interview before. How I'm gonna look on camera, you know, stuff like that. And I mean, I remember when I started out, had no experience with this, and now I just go with the flow. It's not, you know, this is something I've done quite a lot, and it's still, you know, it's still improving, and you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what people are talking about there is actually just the idea of skill building, though, too. So there's a great quote by the gentleman, Ira Glass, who runs, you know, one of the better podcasts that's out there, just shows, and it's This American Life. Such an amazing storyteller, and he has this great, you know, phrase where, you know, he's talking about, you know, when you're starting out, your taste, you know, the taste that you have, or the appreciation that you have for the art form that you're trying to get towards, your skill level doesn't match up with what your taste is. You know, like, even me, when it came to creating the program online, I said, I'm launching this thing in beta form, and don't look for anything pretty, because that's me understanding execution. I don't care. I'm not going to care about prettiness right now, or how nice it looks from a branding perspective. I only care about delivering a result to people. That's what I care about. That I'm caring about them. So I'm not going to charge you a bunch of extra because I've got this beautiful branding. I'm going to just charge you for based on, you know, nuts and bolts, what you're getting inside the program. And so, but when I was putting out the content, did I really like the way that it looked? No. It could have been designed way nicer. Didn't care, though. You know, even now, the content that's inside the 90-year program, you were just talking about just the quality of the content. Yeah, it's professional videos done with professional videographers, you know, with like 2 and 3 camera shoots, and, workbook designers and all these people that came in. In the beginning, it never looked anything like that. It was, you know, stuff thrown in, not stuff thrown inside of it, stuff inside of a, you know, Word document that was, you know, wasn't the prettiest necessarily. It was good enough. So my taste didn't match up with what was out there. But I've worked towards now, my taste and how I want things to look is exactly what the result is out there. But the only way that we can get to that place is by executing, by putting ourselves out there. And so what I tell people, and I'm writing the book on this right now. So I think you and I talked about it in our last podcast with the Champions Mindset stuff. Right. How I actually cut my teeth and built up my name in the professional sports and Olympic world is I'm the person who's known for building alter egos and secret identities to help people perform at a high level. So what I would encourage other people that are, you know, worried about what you were just discussing is stop taking themselves into their email program to do an introduction with some sort of influencer. Instead, take on a new character. Be someone else. Be the decisive person that is going to, that, you know, is all about asking for what they want, and they don't care about no's, and they don't care about rejection. The only thing they care about is forward movement. And that doesn't mean that we're like out there hunting for no's, but you have to realize that just the process means you get no's. I get no's all the time, and I have a great Rolodex of people. People say no, but I don't. That's okay. It's sometimes no's come from the fact that it's just the wrong time. You know, it's just timing is sometimes everything in life. So that's okay. It's no skin off my teeth or my nose if they can't make it. That's fine. So it's about setting our mind right in the beginning. Yes, you're going to get no's. Yes, you don't have a network right now. Maybe that's so. How do you get it? How do you get a network, or how do you build up people? You get 5 people, and then once you get 5 people, you get 15, and then once you get 15 people, you get 25 people on your list, and once you get 25, you get 150 on your list, and you just stair step it. I mean, you
that's
open
what I
up.
talk about too, in terms of, you know, especially when you reach out to someone, you gotta first. I call it the ladder strategy, because you might know someone who knows an influencer. Then you get this influencer on board, and then you get the next one, and then the next one. It just snowballs like this. And people don't do this because they are obviously, as you talk about, they're afraid of rejection, but you gotta get it. You know, this is the wrong time. You asked me if I could help you, you know, get the word out there for your launch for the 90-day year. I looked at my calendar. Even though we are friends, I have to see if they would work. And I said, yeah, this is a good timing. It's also a great program that I don't promote. I don't promote anything related to this. This is unique. So I could see this is definitely going to serve my audience, because I haven't promoted this before, and it's also good for the new year coming up.
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, to your point too. Like, I mean, one of my absolute best friends has a huge list of people, and this program I know would be perfect for them, but he said no, and it was timing as well, and that's okay. I mean, if they have the prerogative to say no, I don't, I'm not going to browbeat someone because they say no. But so getting back to that is understanding that no's, resistance is all a part of the process, because if it wasn't, everybody would be doing it, and if everybody was doing it, then there would be so much noise in the marketplace. So and even that can be motivational to some people, is just know that, hey, the place that you're standing at right now, there are probably 100 people standing next to you, and 95 of those people are thinking the exact same thing that you are, and 93 of them aren't going to take any action. But maybe you're the one who does, and those other 5 people who didn't have that issue, they're a special class of people who maybe just doesn't worry about failure, whatever the case is. Right. But here's the key: keep your mind focused on improvement. If you only send 1 email this week to an influencer, fine. Send 2 next week. And then if you send 2 next week, send 3 the next week. Yeah. And just like you were talking about ladder, just stair-stepping our way along the path. When you're improving, and then keep on focusing on your improvement. Don't worry so much on that outcome thing, that flag that's at the top of the mountain. Continuously just increase that number just slightly, or get to more no's, or put yourself out there. But here's the key: like when I was in sales, I was a terrible salesperson when I first started in sales. In fact, my sales manager pulled me aside when he fired me. And this is at Xerox, which is one of the best sales training organizations in the world. He said, I've never had anybody work with me who's a bigger disappointment than you. Wow. And yet, by the end of the early 2000s, in 2010, I was named the world's greatest salesperson. I got an award in Cannes, France.
I read about that. That's why it's exciting that he said that.
And so, but that's coming from someone who is terrified of people saying no. I was so worried I wanted everyone to like me. And unfortunately in life, that's a very, very it's a terrible lens to go through life with, because, if Jesus or Gandhi or Buddha or these other people, if Gandhi and Martin Luther King couldn't get everyone to like them, why the hell should Todd try to get everyone to like him? It's you're going to offend people possibly. Although I've sent emails to lots of people, I've never had someone email back and say that they were offended.
Yeah, same here. Never happened to me, and actually never had anyone really say something bad or anything. It's just and no, I can get that, and then maybe follow up later. The key is to really follow up. When we got Brian Tracy on, I believe, for the Self-Publishing Success Summit, I was partner on this, and we had to follow up with his team, and eventually we got him on there. But it was not just a straightforward 1 email; it was several emails. But then eventually, we locked it down, and he came on there. So
here's one lesson though I do want to share with people. So, and this comes out before we have to end this up, but and this has kind of nothing to do with the 90-year stuff, or nothing to do with what we were just saying. But as you kind of rise through the ranks and become, more and more successful, and people want your time more or whatever, don't pretend to be a bigger big shot than what you are. And I found this out doing my the podcast. So I had a couple of people do some introductions with a couple of gentlemen that are billionaires or have built massive companies, like huge companies. The demands on their time is extraordinary. And one gentleman, so the email got sent as an introduction. One guy, he emailed me back within 8 minutes of that introduction, personally himself. Another guy, billionaire, he replied back within 15 minutes of another introduction that someone had made with me. And yet, people who are kind of in this maybe online personal brand space, they were like, yeah, I'll get my assistant to look into it. And like it was trying to make things out to be a way bigger deal than what it is. Yeah. And I'll never forget that. And, because my experience of people who are, really, really, really ambitious and really successful is they value relationships, and they don't do very much. They don't do anything to try and hurt that. So just be mindful of that. Don't try to act bigger than what you actually, or not even actually you are. Just don't try to act too big for everybody else, because it's off-putting.
Yep.
And if people who have built some of the biggest brands in the world can handle their own email, I'm not saying that you can't have an assistant manage it, but just don't be a dick. Just
I've seen this happen. Thanks for sharing this. This is a great, great lesson for people. Definitely, you know, for example, if you wanted to schedule an interview, hey, like let me have my assistant look into this. It's like, why not be your friends? You know, I can just send my calendar or
that's all it is. I have a short code link, just you know, and and it's just, here's my calendar. Pick whatever time works for you. You know, and. So anyways.
I don't know, before we end this, just about your program, so you can share a little bit about that. Who is it for? Like, why should people get in on this? And obviously you have your videos here, so you can share a little bit about this before we say goodbye here. Yeah,
sure. So, you know, we're right going into the launch of the Night of the Year. Maybe they found this video later on and on the interwebs. But, you know, at the 90dayyear.com, that's with the number 90 in it, you know, people can get in and see just a bunch of training videos, like free training videos on the idea of, you know, just getting back to, no one has ever complained, no one has ever in the history of time ever said goals aren't important. No one has ever said that I refuse to set goals. No one says that because everyone knows the importance of goals. And yet still, 80 to 90% of people avoid setting goals or going after them. And that's because I've heard from people, it's their constant I don't set a goal because when I do, it's just a reminder of all the other times I've had a goal or a wish or something like that and I've never achieved it. And that bothers me. And so that's why I'm on this mission to try and really change people's relationships with goals and goal achievement and give them a proven model that takes them from where they are to where they want to get to. Now, here's the one thing I don't promise in that process. I don't promise easy, because nothing in life that's worth achieving is easy. I like telling people that this is the hardest thing. This is one of the hardest things you will ever do in your life, because changing yourself, changing the way that you think is hard. Just like you, you know, the virtual summit mastery stuff. You know, it's not easy. You've laid it out in a nice paint by numbers approach, but execute, you know, because you've got to confront yourself with that process. You've got to take yourself into it. So, so I have some videos in there just talking about that, just the idea of like, you know, mental toughness to it. I have the framework again, like if people wanted to find out more about that framework that I was talking about, that's only 4 steps of the framework. And there's 8 steps in the total package. So that's in there as well. And people can just see, like, people just like them. Moms that are working at home. There's people who are stay-at-home moms that work businesses, and it's challenging to find the time in their days to just get things done. And I talk about that, how you could possibly arrange your day and your schedule to make that happen, or even just your goal itself is in that thing. And then people can find out more about just the program itself. Who it's not for, I'd say who it's not for is basically the people that maybe want to pretend like they're really busy, but they're interested in quote unquote success, but they're not committed to it. Yeah. I mean, it's not people like those aren't people I like to hang around with. I want people who are like really committed to making something happen for themselves, because those are all people I can do something with. I can definitely help those people, and I'll bend over backwards to make that happen for all my customers and clients. But that's really the biggest distinction is, you know, if you're just interested, if you're the person who just loves to pick up self-help books but then never do anything with them, I'm not the right guy, because I'll just piss people off, because I'm too, you know, while I might be a little bit nice here, I'm more in your face inside my program, because once you get into my world, I want to make things happen for you, and I'm not going to stop until that happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know, also, you know, if you're watching this, you can also obviously Google the Night of the Year. You can find more information, see some case studies. Todd interviewed a lot of his students. You can see obviously the post I wrote up about it, and you know, some stuff like that. And also, if you join through my link, navid.me/90dayyear, I'm going to throw in some bonuses. So check that out by email if you find this around the launch time. So that's going to be very exciting.
Do it. Sign up. I encourage people to sign up through. If you do sign up through. Maybe it's because he's doing me a favor by, you know, introducing me to you through his audience, and I'm all for making sure that Navid gets his payment and his affiliate commission for that.
Thank you. And I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I know you're working hard to create some great videos. So I encourage you to sign up there, navid.me/90dayear. You get some great professional shot video series from Todd. So that's going to be exciting.
Thanks, Navid. I appreciate your time and having me on the show.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.